Welcome to No Question About That. This is an emergency pod. Ruben Amorim fired into the sun by Manchester United. With Dharnish and Jamie today. What a crew for an immediate reaction. All right, since you were first on this morning, Jamie, immediate reaction. Ruben Amorim sacked after his comments after the Leeds game on Sunday. Not that surprising.
Not that surprising. Not great. Not a great look, I think, for all involved, quite frankly. But, as we've just been talking about before we came on air, it felt like, at least in the last month or so, the writing had been on the wall. Like Amorim kind of continuing his charm offensive, but also becoming more fraught and more outspoken in press conferences. And that kind of culminated in yesterday after the Leeds draw. Yeah, look, it's not good, right? Like, we've now got Fletcher in charge, at least temporarily. We don't know how long for, but really the goal for this season, financially, is to, at the bare minimum, get Europa League football, right? That's now made just a little bit harder, right?
Yeah.
I think Amorim has done a lot of good things in terms of the cultural reset, and clearly, I think all of the football leadership were aligned on that. It feels like the real breakdown has just come because of the January transfer window. We can debate whether that's right or wrong, but, I tend to take a slightly pragmatic approach here, which is you can spend all you want in January. You don't typically get great value for money. And I do kind of agree with the ideology that you should buy long-term targets and not go for short-term mistakes. And sometimes you just have to adapt and live with it. Maybe that was one step too far for Amorim, post the summer, and he wanted a little bit more then. But regardless, that's how it's fallen, right? And
it does seem to have been that has been the straw that broke the camel's back for Amorim. At least, I mean, I don't know if you've been watching the last month of press conferences. He's been noticeably more tetchy in all of them. The vibe definitely changed. I think Mark Critchley on the Athletic pod yesterday was talking about that as well. It appears that the relationship with Wilcox in particular has broken down, and this is around that question of long-term strategy versus short-term needs. And for all the mistakes that the Ineos crew have made, and this is their third big one that's gone wrong now, Ten Hag contract renewal, Ashworth hiring and firing, and now the Amorim firing after 14 months. So historically bad results as well. For all those mistakes, and they are big ones, they have been clear that there is a long-term strategy here, and it would appear that Ruben had other ideas. Dharnish, where did it all go wrong on the pitch? Because it's definitely gone wrong on the pitch this season and last.
It went wrong on the pitch last season. I really don't buy the fact that they have binned him because of bad results. Because if that was the case, you would have binned him last season.
True.
The result somewhat improved this season. They were always going to. You're always going to be higher than 15. They signed Mbuemo, Cunha and Šeško. That was always going to improve things. I seriously think in terms of on the pitch, he actually made adaptations this season. More long balls, better from pieces. He's even played a back four in the last 2-3 games. Happened because football is just such an odd environment now where you can get sacked if you fall out with your manager. Football is basically like any job on Indeed or any other corporate job where it's like, oh, I don't really like my manager. I'm going to say some bad words about him in the anonymous review. And then his anonymous review is a press conference to millions of people around the world. I think it's very, very salient to sort of realize what has happened in the last 3-4 games, because tactically he changed a lot. Last 3-4 games, he changed a lot. Wolves, Bournemouth, and played a back four. I don't know if this is true or not, but some of the reports I've listened to and some people have told me he was convinced he was going to get Semenyo. They were better in a back four, absolutely. Or he looked more like a Man United manager when he played back four.
Mm-hmm.
Things, I think, became awry after this meeting with Wilcox. I think he told him, look, mate, can you play a back four again? And then apparently he said, how do you expect me to play back four? All my players are missing. It all just feels very pertinent, and it feels like in the last month or so, things have become really awry. That press conference as well. Look at what managers do in press conferences when they want to be heard, right? They're like politicians as well. It's the last thing as well. Nobody asked him about it's nothing to do with the hierarchy at the end. He made that statement right at the end and then walked off.
Pre-planned.
It was like an angry kid when he's like, when you tell him you're not going to get the candy and the sweet stuff, he's like, well, I'm pissed and I'm going to tell everybody I'm pissed.
Yeah, I think he's proven to be quite naive in some respects. I mean, the openness which we really enjoyed when he first came in, the kind of charisma that he's got, the big dick energy, has always been there, and that's part of the reason they hired him as well, because you need to have that kind of charisma to be a Manchester United manager, don't you? You know, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at Ten Hag, no charisma, no one warmed to him ever, basically, and people warmed to Amorim, but that that openness and honesty was a little too much. I think Sunday was pre-planned. I think he had a thing to say.
I agree.
He didn't need to say it. I think it was pretty naive. I mean, I guess he's going to walk away with a big payoff. We can ask Jamie about just how big that payoff is going to be. It's going to be substantial, like never need to work again size of money. But clearly the falling out has been around long-term versus short-term. You know, the fact that Bruno was out, AFCON players, a few other injuries all at the same time was done for him. But the club, again, have just been really clear. They're not going to buy anyone that they wouldn't have bought next summer anyway, right? So if they could bring it forward like Semenyo, if it's a long-term plan, they have a view around squad construction, which personally I think we all think is right. Yeah. Now, whether they're executing on it is another question. But the idea that you have long-term planning, we've asked for that forever since Ferguson, right? It was clear that Ed Woodward, as director of football, did immense damage to United. And so now whether we got the right people in place and whether they're executing right is a different question. But strategy appears to be right. Amorim had another idea. And it's just what a massive irony or coincidence that in the same week, Maresca and Amorim have basically had exactly the same argument with their owners around who has control and who doesn't. The point that Amorim made about him being the manager, I mean, it's obviously wrong, right? He was appointed head coach, but the mismatch in expectations between what Ratcliffe, Barada and Wilcox wanted, and I guess throw Joel Glazer in there as well, and what Amorim thinks he asked for or thinks he had, it's really interesting. You go back, the interview he gave basically in his first week with MUTV, where he's like, the manager has to have full control. Like, it certainly puts things in a different perspective now. So, Jamie, how much is he going to get as a payoff? What was he paid, and how many millions is he going to be spending in his apartment in the Azores or wherever he's going to go and chillax for now?
He might not spend any of it. He might put it all into a nice money market fund, make 4 or 5% a year. He might do that.
Well, it's the if you want to get rich strategy, you take your capital, you live on no more than 4% of it, right? And you ensure that it continues to grow. So there you go.
There you go. But no, I imagine it was somewhere in the region of around, I don't know, 7.5 mil a year. So I think with about 18 months left on that deal, he'll be probably paid just over 10 mil, which is obviously going to come out of the transfer kitty. It's another Tyrell Malacia-ish that we can't sign. But
how does that work with the squad cost rule? It's going to count as salary, basically a payoff, isn't it? So it would be part of part of the calculations. Yeah,
it's kind of football operating costs, and the cost to fire a manager will absolutely be in there. So it will be a negative, but we're so clear of that 85% threshold that won't be an issue. Yeah. It will just bring kind of cash into focus, and I think I did a post about it earlier, but I do think I was trying to kind of go through the timelines of what's happened, right? And to your point, there has been now 3 decisions that have gone wrong. Keeping Ten Hag, sacking Dan Ashworth, and now Amorim. If you look at when, quote unquote, that full leadership team was in place, you can maybe explain away at least one of those, if not two, right? For this next decision, the focus and the spotlight now is on Berardo, Wilcox, and Vivell. I've seen a lot of people now starting to turn on Wilcox a little bit. Like, I just don't think it works like that. Like, that's just not the reality of the situation. But they've all had their feet under the table now for over a year. Yeah. They should all be aligned on the direction they want to go in.
Yeah.
Look, I've said before, I've always been agnostic about the formation. It's more, to quote Van Gaal, philosophy, that sort of stuff. Yeah, you think you just need to be flexible to what's put in front of you in terms of formation. But the reality is now, we don't have that much leeway in order to evolve the squad. And so that direction needs to be followed through in all aspects of the club now. And I don't think there are really any excuses.
No, there aren't. And it's going to be a massive decision next. I mean, Darren Fletcher's taking charge for the Burnley game, probably Brighton as well. I can't imagine they'll find an interim in the meantime. And then the reporting is that they'll appoint an interim until the summer, when they'll try and appoint a permanent manager. And although that sounds pretty chaotic, it's probably the right thing in terms of their strategy. They'll want a long-term manager. There's going to be lots and lots more available after the World Cup. Nagelsmann, Tuchel, just to throw out a couple of names there. Obviously, Tuchel they spoke to before when they were thinking of sacking Ten Hag in the summer of 2024. He wanted more control than they'd give him. Keep that in mind, folks, when we're talking about appointing the next manager. I mean, the irony, of course, is that every single club in Portugal, including Sporting, had a director of football to which the manager reported, including Amorim, who reported into the director of football, who is now at Manchester City. So it's a tension in modern football, isn't it? The amount of control that coaches have. And it's very clear now that United are driving this top down. And I guess the surprise, if you put it that way, is that it's taken them so long for this to come to a head, if that was the essential tension. All right, Dharnish, where do we go from here then? I mean, the short term, the prize is there. I keep saying this on the pod. Like, we're on for a 60-point season. In Ten Hag's FA Cup winning season, when we were 8th, we got 60 points. 60 points would have got you about 8th last season as well. 8th is not going to be good enough. But 8th, 60 points this year might get you 5th or 4th, which is like, it's either about the standard of the Premier League or the competitiveness of the Premier League that is open enough. So where do we go from here? The next guy, Darren Fletcher, will presumably play 4 at the back and just he plays 4-3-3 for the 18s. So let's imagine he does that. But imagine the vibes on Twitter if he rolls out a back 3 on Wednesday. Man, the meltdown will be historically fascinating to watch. So what's he going to do for the next few games, Darren Fletcher, and how is he going to get short-term results? Because that's everything right now, isn't it?
Imagine the meltdown if he plays 2 of his sons. I really want to see but,
please, I just want him to do it just for the vibes. It'd be great.
Please, I'd do it. Diego Simeone did.
It's true.
And just going back to Jamie's, I believe, he's costing us a Tyrell Malathia. Those pictures of him smiling just come out recently. I mean, where do we go from here? There's reports that I think they're thinking of Michael Carrick as an interim. I would be absolutely on board with that. He showed a good range of tactics when he took over as interim before. I think it was after Ten Hag.
Yeah,
I think he
had, 4
took
games?
over a few four games with Ronaldo as well. I think he had a good record. He showed that as well. He played a different range of football. But in terms of where we go from now, it's difficult because I keep thinking of that Marcus Rashford quote where he said, stop changing and just stick with one guy. I know that Amorim got rid of Rashford. In my head, I was thinking, well, a lot of the players this season, they're playing a lot better under him. And the top 4 race is always a mid-off, but we're in the mid-off this season. So we've got absences as well. So I don't know. We do need short-term results now. Whether he gets rid of the back 3, Fletcher, or back 4 again will remain to be seen. It's just literally get a good result and then see who comes back after that. Because Leeds, Burnley, and Wolves, I always thought you can just get. I don't care how you get results in these 3 games, just get them and move past it.
Yeah.
But now we're sat here with 2 points. The Wolves game is really like a big sticking point now, because if you had won that come hell or high water, it would have been okay going into Burnley. In terms of how you get short-term results now, stick to what was working for him this season. Long balls, pieces. I would go to a back 4 again, because they were getting more space with them. Rely on Cunha as well. And then, I don't know, wait till Diallo and Mbeumo come back, and see how Fernandez is, because
might be back for Burnley, Fernandez, by the sounds of it.
It's kind of a precarious place to leave them in, because there's just so many absences. Because I know we're going past, there's going to be loads of hullabaloo today about Amorim leaving and who's going to be the interim. But when match starts against Burnley, we're still going to have 6 or 7 players out. I think literally just take it game by game. Go back to a back 4 again. Hopefully Casemiro scores from set pieces and might take results out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think pragmatism is going to be the name of the game right now. Stability, not chaos, and just go to what everyone knows. So for all the improvement in results, some improvement. It's at least not as historically bad as the end of last season. The frustrations really deeply began to build in the last few games, didn't they? Especially the Wolves one. I think that feels like a real turning point, because they were so positive for the first half against Newcastle. Obviously, the second half was difficult, in which he reverted to type. But that after the positivity of both the performance against Villa and that first half against Newcastle, to revert back to a 3-4-3 and then say we did it because Wolves also played 3 at the back and we had to match their shape, that would have been a breaking point for many people. I mean, obviously, Grimsby was a breaking point for many people, and many, many people have still not forgiven him for the Europa League final and just how pathetic United were in that final. So, for all the improvement, there's still much criticism that you can point at, in terms of like Amorim's performances. And the one thing he's never solved is really the ability to actually build up, right? So the success in driving a lot of XG this season has mostly come from those direct balls, right? Get it into the players we've signed, and Mbeumo, Cunha, whose performance levels have been pretty high this season, right? Both of them. Sesko, a mixed bag, but get it into those better players and let them do those. Their thing has worked. And that has been enough to keep United in the shout for European places. Short term, Fletcher's not going to do anything different on the build-up. He's just going to go to the basics, probably pick a formation that everyone understands, profile the players correctly, which Amorim refused to do, have them in their right spots, whoever's available. Although it does sound like Mount's been training for a week now, so it sounds like he'll be back. Bruno apparently is itching to get back. There's a risk there, of course, that he twangs the hamstring again. But whoever comes in for these next few games is going to have a slightly better looking squad. And from the end of January onwards, fingers crossed, we'll pretty much have a full squad. So the interim manager just has a real opportunity to achieve something with his squad still. Both of you, either of you, where do you think Amorim's going to go down in the kind of annals of Manchester United manager history, or at least post-Ferguson? Is this the worst one? Is he like, I mean, results-wise, he is, yeah? I mean, the long-term thinking about him, where do we think we're going to end up on him as a coach manager?
I think he's the worst of the lot. I don't think it can be an argument made for anybody to disagree with, because this club should never, I don't care what season it is, I don't care what the circumstances are, this club should never have lost as many games as they did last season. He's benefited from them, because everybody this season has looked at the improvements and gone, yeah, but they're better than last season. It's difficult. That was never going to be hard.
It's a false benchmark in many ways, right?
That was never going to be hard. This club, football is 70% money. This club, without Champions League money, without needing to be high in the Premier League, is making the second most amount in the world behind Real Madrid. This club used to sack managers when they weren't competing for the title, and rightfully so. He dropped standards to such a level last season. And then on top of that, we were all doing this Stockholm syndrome thing. Well, I'm sick and tired of changing managers. Newsflash to people who hate. If a manager is bad, you change it. But to answer your question, absolutely goes down in the worst in history. The only decent period that I can think of with him was some of those Europa League comebacks. But then we were losing in the league every week. So
Yeah.
it's just, I don't remember a sweet spot we had with Amorim, really.
No, I can't actually. I mean, honestly, I'm not being hyperbolic. I don't think there's a 90-minute performance in his 62 games in charge that we've performed for the full 90. And maybe Everton, his second game in charge. Liverpool was very specific. They executed on a plan. Apart from that, just almost any. Jamie, can you defend him? Got any arguments to defend him, or
Are we defining him as the worst manager or the worst coach? Just to be
I mean, fair enough, because now the blame has to be spread around. If he's a coach, not a manager, you spread the blame around to everyone, like, squad construction, the finances, the strategy.
I don't know whether it's a defense, but to offer some kind of like pros and cons, right? Like the cons are all very, very clear in terms of the results on the pitch. What did he do well? Well, he was strong enough. And again, this might be also with the help of the football leadership to start to enact change in terms of the culture. And, he made that comment about, I might not be succeeding on the pitch, but I'm definitely succeeding off the pitch. It does actually feel like that's the case. Like, what's different now versus, the last 9 managers? Like, the squad hasn't at any point thrown in the towel, right? Like, I don't think we can say that. There's been times when, okay, they've not been as on the front foot and they've not necessarily applied themselves in terms of from an attacking intent perspective, but the effort has maintained it. So I don't think, I think that should go for him. But again, equally, if we're going to spread the blame, we should also spread the credit, because I think that's not just him. Sir Jim himself has said he agreed with those decisions. But look, I think the reality, alluded to it before, football is a very fast-moving industry, right? You can have the best strategy, but for many factors outside of your control, you might not be able to execute it. Therefore, you have to adapt. Yeah. Aston Villa, the prime example of that this season. I thought they were going to have a terrible season. And look, the stats kind of say that they are well above where they are. But Emery's adapted, right? He adapted his ideologies. He's had more physical players in, yada, yada, yada. So, look, I don't think it's a case of, for me, trying to justify it or, come to his defense. I think it's just regrettable that he's kind of done this to himself. It didn't actually need to happen.
The Amorim's stubbornness is extraordinary, really. I think most top managers, even if they have a set philosophy, would have more quickly adapted to both what he laid in front of him, as you're saying, right? So in terms of the squad, that's the squad he had. He got rid of, I guess, what he saw as bad eggs, disruptive influences or players that weren't performing. Not all of them, but on the cultural side, the ones he thought wouldn't go along with the ride. But then he didn't adapt at all, right? So whereas he's made the point over and over again that a formation is just a formation, it doesn't really matter, because in different phases of play, you have a different formation, and he's right. But his principles or his philosophy or his system, those words are often used interchangeably, he wouldn't adapt at all. Yeah. And I think that kind of stubborn streak will not serve him well in his career if he's not willing to do that. He's definitely going to have to change some things if he wants to be a top coach, and I assume he wants to be. And I wonder whether he'll be introspective after this or not, because right now emotions are running high. And I wonder whether in a few months' time he'll think, I didn't actually get all of that right. But that introspection, that has to come, if we're spreading the blame, that has to come from the top as well. So, Sir Jim, who's now very much in charge of operations at the club, is going to have to ask himself, why has this third big decision gone wrong? Omar Barada, is he the real CEO? Reports that actually came last week that Sir Jim was going to step back a bit, which is right. He's a chemicals billionaire, not a football expert. Omar Barada, the CEO, is he going to step forward and be accountable for what's gone wrong as well? Because it's been very noticeable that him and Wilcox have been bloody quiet in the press and let Amorim take it all on. I mean, that's normal, right? Wilcox now, who has a lot of power at the club, is who didn't make the decision to hire Amorim. In fact, it sounds like he was against it. Like, what power does he have now to appoint the next guy? And obviously critically important. So a lot of blame to spread around, but like they have to get the next bit absolutely right, don't they?
Yeah. I'm also sorry, Dharnish. I'm also not. I've seen this kind of doing the rounds. I'm not sure I buy the fact that they've been completely silent, quite frankly. Like, compared to other footballing leadership across the Premier League, I actually do think they've spoken a reasonable amount. Like, we've heard a couple of interviews, actually probably at least 3 that I can recall from Barada.
Wilcox did a long one with MUTV or the official pod, didn't he? And Barada at the stadium launch talked a little bit.
Exactly. So, like, look, that, in my eyes, is way more than I see from most other football club CEOs or sporting directors. Look,
except for Perez at Real Madrid, he's in the press every bloody day.
He's on TV every week.
Every day. It's just amazing.
So, but I do think you are right. Like, they need to get this one right. And look, they've probably bought themselves a bit of time with how they structured it. Look, I think part of that is just the nature of the beast, because this clearly wasn't planned, or with, weeks and months of, foresight ahead of it. But yeah, look, I would love to hear more from them, but equally, like, there is a value. Like, you don't need to hear from them every week or even every month, right? Like, you need to hear from them maybe 2-3 times a year. And again,
we've heard with a P45 that was a fairly emphatic response to Ruben's challenge on Sunday.
They have spoken. I know who they are. That's enough for a sporting director or a CEO. In terms of getting the next decision right, I'm not sure that I really trust them to get it right, just because they've had 3 big decisions to make, like we've all said, absolutely catastrophically wrong. I think while he absolutely deserves to get, now I'm thinking, okay, but what's next? Because number one, the manager market is way for thin. Everybody is in a job right now. Every elite manager is in a job. They're either going to the World Cup. Just check Nagelsmann's contract. Yes, he's staying till the next Euros. So I keep having this fever dream. It's going to come.
That depends.
It does depend. It does depend. I keep coming back to this fever dream of be a case of Pochettino does really well with the American team. Things finally align. He finally gets that job because he's been very close to getting it before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what comes next, because we are just another elite. It was a very special because they became elite through one man's sheer force of will, and the way he changed the recruitment and scouting was very much buying youth and using youth to become the best. They didn't become the best because of a rich owner or anything like that. I thought that continuity would mean they would always be up thereabouts. Things have gotten so to that. We are just another elite club now. So it's a case of, do you go for another elite manager, or, and this is what I would do, go for somebody who knows the club inside out, because you have to rely on what the club still is. You have to thrive on the advantages that United brings. It still has that fear factor a little bit. I don't know how, by the way. People still love to talk about us. My phone was blowing up this morning. I was like, bro,
mine too. Yeah,
bro, we've been shit for 10 years. Why do you even care? We still have...
I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to more than 100 WhatsApps. So there you go.
I got missed calls. I was like, man, I got a life. Can you stop calling me? But we want a manager who is going to rely on the youth, who's going to risk it. Because I really felt like Amorim's doing was realizing this guy is just so riskless. He never goes for it.
Yeah.
He never throws the kitchen sink at it. At least Ten Hag had that. Youth going for matches and using the fact that you're United, you still have that aura.
So you want to appoint Big Ange then, do you? It sounds like.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
It is a really interesting decision who comes next. And obviously, the way they're structuring it, they've got a bit of time, right? Get an interim in. If that's Michael Carrick, he knows the club inside out. Ollie is available. Bring in the triumvirate.
Come on, man. Come on.
Fletcher, Carrick and Ollie together.
Get the band back together. And whilst you're in it,
Fan service.
Yeah. Call Rashford and see how he's doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, clearly we're making some fun of it, but long term, they've got a really big one. And do they swing, right? I know how this works at major institutions. When you're thinking about strategy, it's very easy to rationalize backwards the things that went wrong. And you can go, okay, that wasn't the strategy that was wrong. It was the execution of it. It was the people doing the job at the coalface. They got it wrong, not my problem. And it's going to take some very brave and some proper leadership from Wilcox, Barada and Ratcliffe and Glazer, the Glazers, or particularly Joel, to go, why did this go wrong? Buy some time now with an interim and go, what do we really need? Look at the squad. I know I've mentioned this before and I'm labouring the point, I know, but Liverpool did look at Amorim and they decided they'd need to spend too much money in order to adjust it for his needs. That has proven to be true at United, right? So we, as a club, we got it wrong because we couldn't invest fast enough for Amorim. Amorim got many things wrong too. But, there's obviously, we must back the manager vibe on Twitter today. And you understand it, but there are reasonable constraints on the finances, right? We're no longer a club that pays out dividends to owners. All the money goes into football. They even fired 400 people in order to increase the amount of money going into the football. Now, whether they're getting it right or not is a different question, right? They are trying to maximize the leverage that United still has in order to get the best results on the pitch. It's gone wrong. So leadership now have to go, why the hell did it go wrong? Let's be honest about that. Deeply frank about it. But I don't know whether you saw Nathan Salt was from the Daily Mail, who had some scoops this week, I have to say, got some stuff pretty right, and not normally one to praise the Mail. I know there's not much to like about it as an institution, but he got a lot of things right. Anyway, he posted the Ineos wheel of how do you put it, culture wheel, right? Words they don't like, words they do like. Included in the words they don't like, making the same mistake twice. And which is interesting. I mean, fair play. They made it 3 times, not twice. So maybe they're still within their cultural remit there. But going forward, they just can't do it again, right? We cannot afford to, But that doesn't mean you double down on a mistake, right? So, which it felt like from Sir Jim's interview a couple of weeks ago, that they were going to double down on Amorim, come what may. Results didn't matter. Yeah. You just had to, we're going to go for this long term. He's got 3 years, come what may, and Amorim burned his bridges, maybe Wilcox too. It became untenable for reasons other than results, right? So here we are with an interim going forward. Jamie?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, have the footballing hierarchy got enough to justify to Sir Jim and the Glazers to say it was execution of the plan that went wrong, right? Barada has been quoted in the press talking about not formation. We want to play attacking front foot football. He has read Wayne Barton's book, Football Taught by Sir Matt Busby.
Good book, by the way. Good book.
Yeah, I've actually ordered it. So that's going to be like some of my New Year's reading. So I tend to think that if they're saying that publicly, they will have said it privately. You can point to a bit of bad luck on XG and the fact that when there were tactical tweaks, you did see a noticeable spark in uplift in performances and to a lesser extent results. I think whoever they hire, they need to be really clear about what the remit is, both from a footballing perspective, but also like what's going to be possible and how they're thinking about evolving the squad.
Yeah, you cannot have this situation where the manager and the leadership have different ideas. Exactly. I mean, clearly there's a failure of communication there. That should come from the leader, right? So that's Ratcliffe and Barada who have to own that. And
there's this point about you know, quote unquote old school like managers who want that full control, right? A lot of those gentlemen now that want those types of roles, I did a quick look as to like, okay, what are they doing at the moment? Pochettino infamously wanted lots of control. US men's national team coach. Tuchel wanted a lot more control than Amorim, England manager. Nagelsmann wanted more control at Bayern Munich. He's now in charge of Germany. Klopp, he's now sporting director himself to get the control. Mourinho, he's in Portugal. Emery and Arteta, probably the other two, who have basically had structures built around them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that prevalent anymore. And I think, you know, my working assumption was they were very clear with Amorim about that. You know, we all saw the initial press release. It was a head coach. So I think being really clear on that, and look, you can never prevent someone just going rogue and going off script and effectively kind of getting themselves fired. But as long as they're clear on that and those three stick to their guns, then theoretically, I will stress that should outlast any coach and any manager. Now, look, that's a really long stretch as we sit here today, but that's the faith and resolve that really those three need to have.
Yeah. Fair points. All right. Before we close out, I've got 8 minutes before I have to jump off this emergency pod, a roundabout. Let's talk about who might be the next permanent United manager. I think the assumption should be that it's Fletcher for a couple of games, Burnley and probably Brighton Cup game, and then we get in an interim. Maybe that's Carrick, maybe it's someone else. I'm just going to go through the odds. Dharnish, react to this, right? The odds of next permanent Manchester United manager. Glasner, Fletcher, Maresca, Southgate, Xavi Hernandez, Iraola, Carrick McKenna, Eddie Howe, Laurent Blanc, Unai Emery, Zidane. We can discount a few of those, so you can forget Southgate. I think that's not going to happen. You can forget Eddie Howe. At Newcastle, Laurent Blanc, I'd be surprised unless he's an interim. He doesn't have much of a record, really. Emery's doing a good job at Villa. They are very rich, and Zidane wants to become the French coach. So you can discount most of them. Have you got a favourite, and why? Sorry to put you on the spot. I need the memes. Tell me right now so we can destroy your reputation on the internet.
It's already destroyed. You don't have to do that.
I know.
Out of that list, I'd say the most likely is Marco Silva on that list.
Funnily enough, I don't see him, which is interesting because, he's down at 20 to 1. 20 to 1.
Put me down for a fiver. I'm fiver on Marco Silva, 20 to 1 odds. I'm going to be a rich man. Only because
to be fair, he's done a pretty good job at Fulham, to be fair.
He's been three at the back, doesn't he?
He does sometimes.
No.
Yeah.
Well, with Calvin Bassett. I mean, I think he's been considered before, Marco Silva. I think they might go down. Did they talk to
him? I don't know whether they talked to him in the last round.
I think somebody might have had a... Maybe Marco Silva, maybe Glasner, just because they're going down the Prem-proven route.
That's his personality. Do you think it would fit? Because he's very forthright. And I mean, I'm not worried about the three at the back because he said at Palace he only played that because it suited the squad. Mm-hmm. And he'd actually the first time he'd ever played three at the back. So do you think his personality would fit?
Yeah, I think it would, because I also I'm tactics. The personality would fit because I go back to what Palace were before. He was very close to getting at Palace. He was very close. He made adaptations mid-season. He changed his midfield 2 into a midfield 3. Now I think they're one of the best teams in the league. You look at what he's done at Palace. It's been immense success. They've won a trophy. They're in Europe. And I can't pass it. He changed. Ineos have changed whatever plan they had at the start in terms of recruitment as well. And they're going for Prem-proven things. Glasner's cutting away, and he'd be available in the summer.
Hasn't signed that contract yet.
I would be very surprised if they didn't make an approach for it. But I keep having fever dreams of who will actually be available in the summer. I keep thinking a certain manager in Italy who throws a straw every single job he's
Oh dear.
will
He's-
throw a straw in the summer and be like, I'm available. And he resides in Naples. And look, Antonio Conte is available in the summer. I will give the top of my pinky finger to see him at Man United. Would love to see him at Man United.
He will be leaving Napoli.
Yeah.
They will not be able to spend that much money. He will be leaving them pretty quickly, I reckon.
Yeah, Conte scares me just because of the requirement for total control, always, right? And the whether the clash would come with the leadership over that, right? Would he be willing to work with Wilcox? Because Conte's a bigger personality, but he'd be reporting to Wilcox. So that scares me a little bit, the mismatch. I mean, obviously, in terms of his results and his record, it's unmatched, right? You can't argue that he always gets results wherever he goes. The football's a little prosaic sometimes, but it's same in a kind of Tuchel vibe, really. Just sometimes a bit safe, but not overly negative. I think you can, from the list I was looking at there, you can discount Fletcher. He just doesn't have the experience.
Maybe.
He's doing this interim. I think he's high in the odds just because maybe he gets good results. Maybe we get a couple of good results. They can't get their interim. He gets the season. They do an Ollie, but I'd be really surprised. Maresca has just fallen out with Chelsea for exactly the same reasons as Amorim. Would they take a risk? They'd have to be so clear. Southgate, I think, is on an extended sabbatical and is not the personality United fans. They could slot in Xavi right now.
Yeah,
he's available.
I could
He
see-
did a good job at Barcelona in incredibly difficult circumstances. He plays a 4-2-3-1. He likes positive attacking football. He knows big clubs. He might be a small man, but he has a big personality. I don't know about his English. And obviously he's
okay.
never played or
It's good.
managed in England. So
It's okay. He
It's
promotes a lot of youth, like a lot of the Barcelona squad that you see today that pledged in the first team, and he brought a lot of them in. Is Maresca on that list?
Maresca is at 4-1 as we are speaking. So would he do an interim job or would he want it permanently?
Don't know. I think it'll be Carrick, an interim. From what reports have today, I think it'll be Carrick.
He's available. He knows the club. Iraola, I mean, he's done a fantastic job at Bournemouth, incredibly so, given that they sell all their players constantly. Bit negative, like, I'm trying to, it's not negative, right? It's high pressing intensity, but a lot of long balls. It's a kind of football that doesn't adapt well to an elite club. Could he adapt? That's the question. He seems like a very intelligent man. Like, it comes from the Basque school of coaching, like as everyone does. It's the vibe these days.
But
It would feel risky. Would United go for it?
I think it's plausible that they could go for it, because I'll say one thing. Whoever does really, really well in the Premier League, you should pay attention to it, because it is the Super League now. The Premier League is so far ahead of the other leagues. It's insane. His Bournemouth side this season has had to deal with a lot of losses in terms of House and Zaberni going. Kirk is as well. Domenico is now leaving. Again, they did the same thing last season. Bournemouth lost a lot of key players last season. They should have probably been in Europe. A lot of the good stuff that I've seen from Bournemouth, it's all without the ball. I want to see United really improve without the ball. They have this season. But I think if they were to continue to do, that's where football is going. Areola, Glasner, and Maresca, I think, would be, and Silva as well, I think would be the foremost like about Jamie.
All right, can I throw a name in? Currently at 20-1, which is well down the list, is Julian Nagelsmann. I want him in just for the rigs.
Come on.
For
the wrist.
the clothing.
For the wrist.
For the rigs. For the rigs. He wears a suit with ankle socks and trainers. So it's
I just want to see scooters. Go to the dugout on a scooter.
Was it a hoverboard or a scooter?
I think he's done hoverboard as well.
Hoverboard, yeah.
Just brilliant. Love it.
Brilliant.
But to be fair, like, I'm being flippant there because, he's a bit of a character. But if you want a template for the kind of football you would expect at Manchester United, he will play it, right? It's attacking football. His Germany side are pretty good. I mean, I think they have a few weaknesses that you can't solve in the transfer market, obviously, because it's international football. But he would probably, and he speaks great English. He's got a big personality. He would probably slot in quite well. Whether he wants to leave Germany or not is another question. The Bayern thing, I'd kind of discount. I know he fell out with Bayern, but everyone falls out with Bayern. Yeah. I mean, he would get more control at United than he would ever, you can't do anything as coach at Bayern. And so that's interesting. The next one on the list, and then we're going to have to leave it. 20-1, Wayne Rooney.
Yes. Wayne Rooney. Come on.
Oh, you can imagine Old Trafford would go absolutely wild at that. Derby, Plymouth,
Give us the legend.
Birmingham, DC United. I don't know. I think he's a pundit now, not a football manager. All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you, chaps, for this emergency pod. We'll get this out, and if you're listening, no doubt we'll do an extra on this, and then I think I'll get on with Wayne, and we'll talk about football, talk by Matt Busby and Omar Barada's reading of it, because surely Wayne has more insight into Omar Barada's thinking than anyone else. Something like that. All right, Amorim gone. Surprised, not surprised, both at the same time. It's as with United, it always comes as a big shock. I suppose we'll be back later in the week with a Burnley preview and review as well. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Jamie, Dharnish, you hopped on an emergency pod. Thanks a lot, chaps.
Till next time.